As usual, when we get started with these, let's do some self-introductions. And just if you guys could tell us, what got you here today? What's going on in your life?
You want me to start?
You want to start?
Do it.
Okay. Or did I get you here because I made you more interested in fantasy? Yeah, I started Bookborn, I guess, 2 years ago as just a way to talk about the stuff I loved. I just didn't have enough people in my life to talk about fantasy. Like, I had 3 or 4 friends, and at some point you run out of things to talk about with the same 3 people when you're reading the same books. And so I started Bookborn as just a way to get into the book community and talk about fantasy books since I love them so much. And it's been a super fun community to be a part of.
Let's be clear. For like 10 years, she had like this folder on her computer of blog post ideas that were like these deep dives into topics that she wanted to like talk about.
This is true.
But she was like, I don't want to start a blog. I don't know. And then she was like, no one reads blogs anymore. I don't know. And then it happened. She's like, oh, I could do that.
Well, that's a short name. But yeah, I had the idea for Bookborn for like 7 years before I pulled the trigger. So it's been a long time coming.
I claim full credit for the name. I came up with Bookborn. So
yeah.
One
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Okay.
And
what about you,
and
Zach?
me, yeah. So I have for many years been talking about writing a book. I grew up doing a lot of like short form writing. So I wrote like a lot of poems and got pretty involved in music and songwriting. So I started writing a lot of songs, and I just really, really liked writing in general. Actually, my first year of college, I was studying broadcast journalism to be a TV anchorman was my plan. And that I went quite different direction. I went in electrical engineering instead, but I have always liked like the writing side. And so about 5 years ago, I really started hitting it hard. I started working on Voice of War. The first draft was nothing like what is
You
currently
started
there.
working on it like when we were living in our California apartment. So it was like a while ago. I mean, it was really different back then, but that was like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
You should see the first map I made. It's horrid.
It's pretty funny, actually. You should post it like on Twitter or something.
Actually, that's so funny you mentioned that, because I have always thought, do people make their own maps? Obviously, I have PL I could talk to here now, but I feel like there's some famous cartographer out there in the fantasy world that makes everyone's maps, or are they all hand drawn? Do you guys make your own as authors typically?
A lot of authors will like hand draw their first ones and then commission like a proper one. There's also programs out there so people can go online and like use map making software. I've tried and I did a terrible job at it. So then I commissioned somebody to do it for me.
Okay. So it is commissioned usually.
I'm sure there is someone out there though who loves cartography and does it though.
Yeah.
I'm sure it exists.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate that. All right, let's just go through some of the comments. Hi, Chris. Chris here. Oh, we have
Maria.
a Bookborn fan.
Do you even watch them all anymore? I used to make Zach watch them all to catch errors, and then we got tired of that real quick. So now if there's errors, they're just there. So
I watched the Greenbone one today.
Yeah. Ooh, Greenbone. That's a trigger word for me in the best way possible.
He has only read City, though. He has only read City. So
speaking of Greenbone and Bo sent us the Illumicrate versions, and they're incredible.
They're incredible.
They're like right over here on the corner
behind us. But
oh my gosh, I have the biggest FOMO with that because I had a really bad experience with the previous box. And so I didn't go for that box because I was like, oh, it's not going to be worth it. Apparently, it's worth it.
And you're like, it was.
These ones are very nice.
Hi, Lana.
Hello.
Call that maps.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, did you make your own map?
I made a feeble attempt at my own map, but then I had an illustrator jazz it up and make the mountains look kind of, dark and gloomy, like, LOTR style. And, but yeah, I drew my own original maps and they definitely enhanced them far beyond my capabilities to do so.
I actually have a map being commissioned right now and it's getting close to done and it's freaking glorious.
It actually is amazing.
Yeah.
You got a really cool
it's
artist.
Like probably, and I know it's mine. it's for my next series that I'm going to work on. But it's
gotta hear about that.
So good.
Gotta hear about that because I'm like Zack Argyle fanboy here, so you know.
Hey, Janelle's got the receipts this time.
You gotta hold them up, right? I don't have the third one yet. I haven't read the third one. But I'm anxious.
I mean, it's not even available yet.
It's not out yet.
I'll be digging that out as soon as it's in pre-order. So, yeah.
We might have another fan of the Threadlight series here. Lana's saying, "Guess what I'm reading? It's either Greenbone or Threadlight. I'm not sure."
Greenbone or Threadlight. That's my guess. Yeah.
Greenbone Saga is perfection. Yes,
it really is.
Yes, it is.
I need to read book 2.
I need to read book 2. Yeah, and what Kay's saying, next series, I'll spill the tea on that because Zach was going to write a standalone because he was like, I don't want to write a series. And I was like, that's a good idea. And then like 2 days ago, he was like, I changed my mind. Now it's a series and I'm changing everything about it. And it's going to be an epic fantasy. And I was like, okay, you told me you didn't want the deadlines, but
I'm so excited
you do
about it,
you.
though.
You do it. We always joke because like we both chose hobbies with deadlines and it's just like a really annoying thing to have hobbies with deadlines. Like I got to produce a video every week. You got people expecting you to release on your due date. And that is a stressful thing. You know, some
Paul
people
shakes
just
his
like,
head. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about pressure on Zach because I want the next book. So
yeah, it's going to be on time. August 24th, right?
August 25th.
August 25th.
Okay. That extra day matters.
That extra day matters. Sometimes.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I haven't gotten to Threadlight yet, but I've heard some amazing things about it, in the community. Obviously, PL, as a fan, I've heard nothing bad about it,
Oh, there's people who don't like it. And that's okay. I'm open about that.
I'm just going to keep embarrassing him that for Taylor, who like Zach and Bookborn are huge Brandon Sanderson fans. And I've only kind of sampled Sanderson. Thanks to Taylor, she got me all, some FOMO, and we're gonna start maybe doing some buddy reads and some other things with Sanderson. But in the indie sphere, and I don't want to make that distinction too hard because we're all authors, but for me, Zach's work sounds like the closest to Sando that you normally see in the industry, and I mean that in just highest praise. So. Yeah,
lightweight Sanderson. That's what I call it sometimes.
Lightweight Sanderson. All right, I'm sold. Consider me sold.
Taylor, you will love them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, PL knows my taste, so.
Then I hope you like it.
We had a direct question here. It says, Zach, I'd love to hear more about how you approach family dynamics in your writing. All the praise I hear about that is what intrigues me most about Voice of War.
Yeah. I mean, Hillary's a big part of this one as well. Obviously I've been talking to her about this series for a very, very long time. And she's my alpha reader. She's like the first person to read the book ever, whenever I finish one. She gives me a lot of great feedback. But family's just been really important to me kind of for my whole life. It's actually the reason why I switched away from broadcast journalism. Because I found out to become a TV anchorman, you had to be a reporter for like 10 plus years. And being a reporter is like, you're on call all the time. It's really hard to have a family. And I wanted to have a family like sooner rather than later. And so that was part of the reason why I switched to engineering, was because it was a very stable job. I was like, it's a good job for a family man. So family's just been really important to me for a long time. So when I started writing, it very clearly seeped into the stories. And then I wanted to make sure that I didn't just tell the stories of the dads, but I also told the stories of the moms. And I think that's what a lot of people like about the Threadlight books, is that there's quite a few moms in there that with kind of different roles, but they get explored in different ways as well. So, and she is one of the ones that helped me out a lot with that. So whenever I write like a chapter from like a POV of one of the women, I'm always like, all right, Hillary, what am I doing wrong here?
Yeah, I think the big one I always think of is there's a scene in book 2. This won't be a spoiler. I'll make sure to not spoil anything. That deals with like postpartum depression, and I feel like that's the one I was able to help the most with. Like you got close, but there was like some language in there, like from my own experiences and from my friends' experiences. Like, what does that really feel and sound like? And just something that's not represented a lot in fantasy fiction. And so I think that was important to both of us, like family dynamics in general. Like people always feel like it's too hard to have a hero that's married or has children or like family responsibilities. So you just don't see it a whole lot. I think it's coming more now. But yeah, so I think that's what like motivated you a lot to write about that.
I still remember in the first book when I gave her like, I don't even think it was the first version. It was like after I did my first major rewrite. There's a scene where a new mother hands her child to another person in like this stressful, dangerous situation. Hillary's like, nope, no way. She's giving up that baby right now.
Wouldn't do it.
She's not doing it. Change it.
So you had to change the scene.
I was like, you're right. Yep, I'm changing it.
That is awesome. I want to ask you both a bit about SFF, which has played a huge role in both your lives, especially now with Bookborn being a judge. Congratulations, and Zack being a finalist in the past. So, what, Zack? What was your SFF experience like? And Bookborn, what is it like? What's your experience been like so far, being a judge and bringing together this all-star cast of you booktubers and bloggers under your wing to help you get through your slush pile? Like wow, impressive.
I'll start that.
Sure.
Is your work going to be stressful?
I was going to say it was a roller coaster. Oh man, I mean, when you put your book up and then you get 10 critical judges that come in and they're going to say exactly what they need to say, and they're not going to be nice about it. And there was times where I would get a review and I would just light up and just be beaming for days with how excited I was. And then the next day I'd get a review and it was just like terrible. Oh no.
When it was Lynn. Was Lynn your judge?
Yeah.
I just remember you'd wake up and be like, not my book again. Like she would post every Wednesday and you'd be like, it's not mine. Like the waiting.
At the beginning, yeah.
Like every morning, like we'd still be in bed. It'd be like 6:30 a.m. and you'd be like, it's like the first thing you would check.
Yeah. But the best part was the community. Like once I became a finalist, we have a Discord with all of the finalists from my year, and we still talk all the time, like every week. It's been awesome. Like I knew about combat codes getting acquired by Orbits like 6 months in advance. I knew that Justin's Lost War was getting acquired long before he had announced that as well. So it's really cool. Like the people in that group are amazing and really talented authors and good people. So I think the community aspect of it was definitely, for me, the highlight.
Yeah, and like the community in SFF is so great, and that's why last year Book Nest reached out to me to be like an underjudge, I guess, and so I helped them with their slush pile. And I did say after that I'd never do it again. Because
famous last words.
It was famous last words. Not because I didn't enjoy reading the books. I absolutely did. It's just so hard to have that in your hands. Like just so many good books and so many people who are trying to make it, and having to just choose one and feel like you're a dream crusher is just really difficult. But when Mark reached out and asked if I wanted to be a judge, it was like, of course I said yes, because it's also just like such an inspiring contest. And I was so great. I can't believe everyone said yes who helped me out. I didn't have anyone say no. Dom and Pete and Joanna and Leslie and Mitch, they're all like incredible booktubers who are super active in the indie community. So like, it's been a blast. We have a little chat up and we just talk about all the books. I haven't read a single SFF book yet this year. I'm waiting for them to give me my semifinalists. So I don't know. You'll have to ask me in about 3 months how I'm feeling, because I'm expecting it to be very stressful. But I read all the winners and they were amazing. So like, I just feel it in my heart that there's going to be like an amazing book this year. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I saw you did a fantastic video ranking all of the SFF winners, and I wasn't surprised at the order you put them in, because I think it was exceptionally well done, and I kind of felt the book that you chose number one would be the number one, because just the general.
Everyone will know if they follow me that Sword of Kaigen is just kind of like, that was like my book of the year I read it. So like, I'm fine with spoiling that. Like, no one's going to be surprised that that's the one I put first. Oh, I love that book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was exceptional video, and of course, obviously, Boost here recommending everybody check out Bookborn's channel. It's phenomenal content. Mm-hmm. So
Very nice of you.
Really
I agree. It's nice to hear from your guys' perspective as people who've been through SFF before, because this is my first year being a judge. PL's the one that actually got me into it. I'm a judge for Before We Go blog. So I also have had an interesting experience grappling with wanting to be honest in my reviews and knowing that a cut is a cut, So that's something that I really appreciate, PL's helped me with. And I've talked to Steve too about how to interact with indie authors when writing books, because Steve is, talk about someone into indie, So I've asked him too some ways to handle that. So I like hearing from your guys' perspective as well. People who've gone through it before. It's not an isolated feeling, it's worth it, but it's definitely something
a hard
I think
balance between, being honest for me on a big author or, someone who has a lot of press. It feels easy because I know that my review is a drop in the pool. But when you get to a new author, I'm not even just self-pub, just even like a new author or self-pub new, then you just feel like it has so much weight. And then the weight of that just really pulls on me. Like, I just want to be clear, like, just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for other people. And, I just, the idea of just trying to like put a closed door on someone is just something I never want to be a part of,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of props to Mr. Steve Talks Books, because I've learned a lot in how he does his booktube reviews. In terms of, first of all, he's meticulous about not spoiling the book, and second of all, he's always, again, and this is something that I think a lot of us try to do in the community bloggers, we try to emphasize the positives and keep the negatives to a minimum. We really try to highlight, sometimes there's those books that they really just don't work for us, and it is what it is. But you might have someone else that, here's what your critique is. You know what? That's right up my alley. And then next thing you know, they love it. So, but yeah, props to Steve. I think, you can learn a lot from watching him and how he does this. He's shaking his head, but he's
all hail Steve.
He's like absolutely not. I just
like, stop it some more.
There's
hi, Andrew.
Andrew.
I did that a while ago. Sorry, Andrew. You've been here for a minute, so. Loving Bonds of Chaos.
Oh, he's standing Adam Gold.
Everyone
right there with you, Andrew.
Adam Gold, yeah.
Man crush right there.
Yes. Yes.
That's the narrator.
Awesome.
And then more narrator. Gold love.
That sounded rude when I said that. I don't like any audiobooks. I should be clear about that. Adam Gold has an amazing voice.
He does.
Maria says that makes sense that your partnership is probably why everyone says the female characters are so real and well written. And that was my thought that I had as well when you were sharing that, because we always talk about sensitivity readers, but they really do make a difference. If you're writing a perspective that's not your own, no matter what that perspective is, having someone check that, that's what really makes it come through. And I'm completely sold on the book now, by the way. Badass moms are a trope that I'm there immediately. So
you love Sword of Kaigen too, then.
I really, really did enjoy that book. I had a few things personally from the Japanese perspective, because I live in Japan and my husband is Japanese, that were kind of, we just talked about this, but they were a thing for me, but they won't be things for other people. And I still really enjoyed the themes and the character work, and everything that everyone loves about that book is what they say it is. So I would still highly recommend it.
You had the extra perspective.
Yeah.
The culture perspective that made it tough. That's interesting.
Yeah. But I still would recommend it to almost everyone because it's a fantastically written book. Yeah. So I loved Misaki. 3 SPFBO judges. Yeah. Hot take. If Hillary was one of the mothers from the book, which one would she be?
I don't think she would be either.
Yeah.
I think she would be Navani from Stormlight Archive.
I do really love Navani. I would like to be Navani. Navani is my spiritual goals. I mean, Jasna has my heart, but Jasna's way too cold-hearted, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't, even though I'm not necessarily a warm and fuzzy person, I don't think I'm quite. I think Navani's a nice middle.
You couldn't do what she does.
Middle ground. I guess I'm closer to Ariel maybe, but I don't think either were inspired by me for sure. I don't feel like either of the characters really. I like them both,
aspects of them, sure. But...
Aspects maybe, yeah. Good question.
Good question, Bo.
The best stories have a hint of truth, right? So
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Pia.
No, and here I am going to, there are two people who are way too humble to likely bring this subject up, but I just want to have you to talk a bit about, if it's okay. You've done some incredible philanthropic things in the writing community, and most recently, you did something quite incredible for indie writers. And I would like the people listening and watching to know a bit about what you have done and how marvelous it is for the community. So if that's okay, if you don't mind talking about it a bit.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's
Gotta
really
make Hillary
kind.
do it.
Yeah, I mean it is a little embarrassing. We started IFF, which is Indie Fantasy Fund, which is like our new trying to get officially nonprofit. It's a lot of paperwork, but to help indie authors, and we did 5 grants this year, 6 grants.
We ended
up doing 6 grants this year of $1,000 each to give to indie authors to help them with things like covers and editors and
narrators
and advertisement. Because one thing we learned with Zack going through the process is how expensive self-publishing is. I think there's this idea that it's not, but if you want, like, it's so hard to get readers when you don't have the advertising budget. First impressions means so much more when you don't have a big name behind you pushing your book or having the artists. And so we had some extra, we're really blessed. And we just thought, wouldn't it be nice to give back to the community? It just didn't feel fair. I guess that's what we talked about. It didn't feel fair that we have all these resources that other books maybe didn't, that were just as deserving. And we got, 150 entrants. Oh my gosh, talk about a stressful process. It was that's why we ended up doing more grants, because it just felt like so many people just like had these amazing pieces of writing and just felt really deserving. So it was a really cool thing. And we're going to do it yearly. So next year we'll do it again. Yeah.
We are lucky. We don't need the money from my writing. So whatever money I make from the writing, we can just kind of reinvest in the community.
Yeah. So it was a really cool experience, and yeah, we're excited to keep doing it, grow it bigger. We're hoping next year maybe to even get to make it a bigger deal, to have people donate like artwork, like I'll do your art, or donate like time and stuff like that. We've already had several people reach out about it, so we're very excited to keep growing that.
Ooh, I have a light going off with that. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might know somebody.
When PL's wheels start turning.
We've had some people reach out to us about how to make it bigger, so we're really excited about that going forward.
If there's someone interested in donating, is there a place they can find more information?
Not yet.
So
that was part of the reason why we're trying to make it an official nonprofit, so that there's like an added benefit where, like, if you do donate, that it's tax deductible for you.
And not only that, but maybe feels more official. Like, we wanted to, so a lot of people reached out even this year to donate, and we're like, look, we want to show you that we gave the money, that it happened before you give us, like, you let us be stewards of your money. Like, we wanted to make sure we had a track record and trying to do a nonprofit officially so people feel like it's safe. I mean, I think there's a lot of people in the community who trust us, and we really would use the money to go where it goes. But, we just want it to feel safe and official. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're kind of working on getting the paperwork in, so it'll feel maybe a little better for people to donate. But we hope to have info soon on that. There is a website. What's our website? Anyfantasyfund.com?
Anyfantasyfund.com. Yep.
So that's where we'll put any new information as we work on that.
Wow, that is absolutely
an amazing project. Yeah.
Yeah, but you two are wonderful people. That's just phenomenal. So thank you for what you do for the community on behalf of all of us. That's incredible.
Yeah, so, it's very little.
That was
thank you.
Coming from PL. That's saying something, because that guy's a saint.
Yeah, right. I always say we don't deserve PL. So, but actually, the Indie Fantasy Fund was the first tweet that I saw from you, Zack. It was my introduction to you. Was you sharing that, and I was like, whoever this is needs to be on my radar, because that's incredible. So
that's a tweet that makes you look good. That's a good first tweet for someone to see from you. Yeah.
Not the purpose, but
no,
I'll take it, I guess.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Really appreciate it.
That's awesome. I wanted to. I had the honor of
you want me to talk about 10,000 Doors of January? PL, is that what we're getting at?
I'll let you do the talking.
One of Hillary's very favorite books that I DNF'd.
Yeah, it was so funny because I always try to tell people that I literally don't care if you don't like books that I like. It doesn't offend me because I didn't write them. Like, even if I did, like, it just doesn't offend me. But our good example is 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. Have any of you guys read that?
It's on my TBR.
I know it. I know of it, but I haven't read it yet.
Well, I fell in love with it. I loved that book. And I was just like, Zack, you've got to read this. And he made it like 25% and was like, I am not finishing this book. I am so bored. And I was like, okay, fine.
It's also like, I'm not a big one on flowery prose, and it was very flowery. And so that mixed with like the very slow pacing, I couldn't do it.
I think the biggest difference between us is that I have no concept of pacing, as Zack would put it. Like, I can be like, books can be very boring and it does not bother me. I will just sit in it and it's fine. And Zack's just like, that is not for him.
Something needs to happen.
I am scared. He's going to read Piranesi. And I'm very scared because I love Piranesi so much. I think that one will hurt more if he doesn't like it. And there's a chance he won't like Piranesi. It's fine. What books do you like that I don't like? That's less.
It's less, yeah.
It's less.
We've been diverging more over time because I've been reading a lot more indie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't been reading a lot of the same stuff recently.
Yeah, that is
Sadly.
true. We used to, at the beginning, before we were involved in the community, we used to just read the same books all the time. Like, he'd finish one, then I'd read it, and he'd read what I read. And now, being involved, there's just so many books now in the community that it's just like, it's really hard. And so we've just started.
So Jade City was one where I was like, we need to read a book together because it's been a while. And so let's read Jade City. I've heard good things. And she was like, oh, okay, whatever. And now she read all 3 of them. So actually, here we go.
I knew you were going to tell this story.
We were going to start on a certain date. We're like, okay, we're going to start. It was like, I don't know, January 1st or something. And I started a couple days early. And she was like, you can't start early. What the heck? You're going to finish before me. And I was like, no, I'm not. And then she finished like 3 weeks before me.
Yeah. I got really mad at him for starting early. And I was like, we said we were going to read this together. And then I finished it like 3 weeks before you.
And then she finished the entire series. And I haven't even read the second one yet.
I'm a fast reader.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. My husband and I, for the life of us, cannot watch TV shows together because I'll come home from work and he's watching it. And I'm like, excuse you, sir. How dare. So I know those vibes, Hillary. I feel you, both of you, Zack and Hillary. I get it. But Greenbone Saga is absolutely phenomenal. You can't see my top shelf, but it's always on display in my videos because I love it. So I'm very excited to hear your thoughts together when you both share them, because some of the best.
I cried twice during Legacy, and that's really rare for me to cry in a book.
Really cry, yeah.
I don't usually cry in a book, but Legacy was a gut punch.
Wow.
I screamed multiple times, like while reading it. Jade War is the one. That one scene. Woo.
There's like scene
like out loud. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't even say character names though, because I don't want to spoil like who survives. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask what you two are reading now? Like along besides, like what are you diving into these days?
I am currently reading Flames of Mira, a traditionally published book by Clay Harmon. I got to meet Clay when I was in Utah for a software conference. And so I set up like an author dinner and got to hang out with him and a couple other authors, Brian Lee Durfee and Justin T. Call, as well as my friend Sarah Chorn, who's the best. So that was really fun. So I wanted to read his book, and it's great so far. I'm like halfway done. So far, so good. It's got a really cool cover with like this like lava fist on the front. If you've seen it, it's really cool.
You're like
I have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You read it, Steve?
No, I've seen the cover. It's very it pops, and you remember it when you see it. It's like, wow, that's an awesome cover.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'm actually reading a self-pubbed right now, which I always get the title wrong. We're gonna get it right this time. The Legend of Black Blackjack. The Legend of Blackjack.
I kept calling it Jack Black.
I
gotta go read
Every
Jack Black.
time.
And I was like,
it's not the name of the
not
book.
that one.
The Legend of Blackjack. I'm a little over halfway through that. By
A.R. Witham.
A.R. Witham. Okay. Thank you.
Andy.
I'm the worst. I've talked to him. I'm so sorry. I've talked to him too. Yeah, I'm reading that one right now. It's kind of it's like a fun middle grade read. And then I actually was just, when you said Sarah Chorn, I think I'm going to read hers next, Of Honey and Wildfire. I said that wrong.
Yeah, those are.
Of Honey and Wildfires. Okay. That's, I think, the next one. I keep forgetting. I really want to read that book. I've heard amazing things. So I think I'm going to pick up that one next. So yeah, some self-pub before my next
signed when I was in Utah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I forgot that you got it signed.
And she gave me the other one too.
She was actually one of our IFF recipients too.
Oh.
We had already owned her book though, and Zach had already read it and loved it and kept prodding me. And then finally when I read like the little, what's it called? Blurb. Or not blurb. We had them submit a chapter.
Oh,
so like when I was like reading a chat and I was like, okay, I gotta just like read this. This is really good. Oh yeah, Andrew, you've read it. Assuming you've read it. You said yes in a way that made me assume you maybe read it.
Yeah. He did a gush review.
Oh, gush review. Okay.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
yeah. He really hyped it up in the Indie Accords readathon. He got a lot of other people to read it. So
AR was kind enough to send me a copy. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I will get to it. It's on my shelf. He was nice enough to do that. So
nice sometimes to take a break and read like a book for a little bit of a younger audience because it's just so fast paced. You know, it's like kind of nice. Like I was reading so many slow books. I was like, you know what? I need to just kind of like. I need to read something that moves for a moment. That's a little lighthearted, you know? So it's been feeling good.
Yeah. Middle grade is a great palate cleanser. I also like audiobook thrillers as a palate cleanser between giant fantasy series.
Smart.
So we missed
3
quite a
characters.
few comments. Yeah. Yes. Oh wow, I know everyone's name. You know, because Hillary, I have problems with names too. I swear, I can read a book and then the next day forgot the main character. So in a lot of my reviews, I should probably keep these outtakes in, but I'm always like, our main character, and then I have to check and then retake it because I can't.
I filmed an entire Pratchett video where I said the main character's name wrong the entire video. And I didn't even notice I said it wrong. Like, I love Pratchett. I read it a bunch and people were like cracking up. They're like, you said the name wrong the entire time. I'm like, well, here it is.
You just have to
not like pronounced it wrong, like literally had the wrong letters. Like it was the wrong name. It's fine.
Yeah, Sarah Chorn stuff is amazing. Steve and I both read Serafina's Lament. Wow, very
so good.
Dark. Hey, Steve, like that.
Yeah. Really good though. Really great book.
Yeah.
I know the cover's so pretty, and Zach was like, "Be prepared. It's going to be sad. This is not a prepare yourself." And I was like, "Okay."
It's beautifully sad. Yep.
Yes, I was. I said to Steve that it's dark like Beyond Redemption. At first, he's like, like Beyond Redemption. He started reading, and then he was like, "Oh, okay, I see what you mean." I just started. He started reading. So, yeah, good stuff.
Just to go back some of the comments that we had before in our conversation, just more love for sort of Kaigen, Misaki, and Orca, Bloodsworn. Mm-hmm. Yes. Still waiting on a Chroma Wolf, Andrew says.
See if I can figure that out.
Chroma Trend.
Always Bo's fault.
Comments on the Indie Fantasy Fund.
Yeah, thanks,
extremely generous and a wonderful gift to the community. Absolutely. And y'all are superheroes. Just post the Venmo for it.
Probably have like an official Venmo. We've thought about it. Yeah.
Let's see.
It's reminding us we should work on it. This is really reminding me.
September.
Yes, Maria.
Maria saying ditto on having no concept of pacing, as long as I like the characters. And it's funny that Maria mentions this because I was part of a Memoirs of Lady Trent read along with her. I don't know if anyone else has read that series. I've talked about it a couple times on lives we've done, but it's you have to like the characters if you're going to like that series. So Maria speaks the truth. We both really enjoyed it though. Would highly recommend. Oh, shots fired.
I feel so much pressure.
I do understand that pressure though. Sometimes there's a book that you just you want to read, but you don't get to because of that pressure. So I'm wondering, since we're all readers here, this kind of just sparked a question for me. Piranesi, obviously, but is everyone else here? Do you have a book that you've been avoiding because you don't want to, make a choice about it? Because I think we all have those. And I asked the question, and I know I have one, and I can't think of something right now. But does anyone have any that comes to mind? PL's nodding. Do you have one, Steve?
I can't think of it. I'm sure it'll come to me as soon as we move on from the question.
Right. I posed the question and I don't have an answer, but I know that there's one out there that I've been avoiding.
I just thought of this the other day. It's like hard to think about. I don't know. I read so many books and then I don't like them and I make people sad about it. So I just feel like I have that feeling before every book I start. I'm like, oh great, is this another book that everyone loves and I'm not gonna like? Perfect. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that comes to mind is The Shining. I think I've been avoiding that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a big King fan.
Yeah, I think we talked about that before. I'm a horror newbie. Steve knows a lot more about horror than me, but I've only read what's the one where the lady breaks his ankle?
Oh, Misery.
Misery.
Thank you, Misery, and It. And neither of them really struck me like, wow, there's a reason this guy is so prolific. So maybe he's just not for me either. Not that he needs my reviews. Speaking of someone that I'm a drop in the bucket, like I'll freely say what I feel about his books, but I haven't really connected with him so much either.
Yeah, I've only read one King book. It was the unabridged The Stand, which was a lot for me.
Yeah,
didn't love it.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and it was dark. There were some dark moments in a way that I was not prepared for yet. I think now that I've maybe read some Abercrombie and read some more stuff, in the last 10 years, I might be more prepared for it. But at the time, I was not prepared for something like that brutal.
I heard it was very dated. It's very what happens in that book. It wouldn't necessarily happen now. The revised versions have cleaned up a bit, but
interesting.
I'd have to say, sorry, go ahead, Taylor. Yeah. No. I'd have to say for me, it's Gideon the Ninth. That's I'm like, I feel like I should read it. I think I'm gonna like it, but then I'm nervous I may not, and I don't know. I mean, again, like Taylor was saying, like, okay, an author of that ilk, what does my review matter, right? If I don't, right? But at the same time, yeah, I feel like I should be getting to that series, and I haven't, and there's no particular reason I'm avoiding it, but I just am internally, and I don't know why.
I think so many people, they have answers, and so if I like Die Hard, what
is this my connection that's making people speak?
No, you're okay.
No, I think they just have a little connection issue.
Wi-Fi issue?
Yeah. I think we'll be back.
Yeah. Well, while we give them a minute to come back. Same thing with names. Yes. It's just I don't know where they go. It's the same thing in real life. When I have like new students, I have to say their name 15 times in class so that I remember it.
You know me with names, and I see it in your shelf, Taylor.
Oh,
Shadow of the Gods.
I think
that book hurt my soul when I read it. All of the names were like the exact same. It was like Leaf, Lick, Farvik.
Yeah.
Like, so many X.
So many consonants together, right? There are a lot of consonants.
And then there was 2 war bands, and like there was just like 20 people named in each of them, and I don't know where I am. It was really hard. That one, world building in that one was rough for me.
I think Steve passed on John Gwynn too. I think Steve is he kind of and I love John Gwynn.
Yeah.
No but no disrespect, no people that don't, no worries, right? It's
Steve.
I think
I can see why people enjoy it. It's
You
just
did
not
not love that
for me.
Mm-hmm.
I know, a lot of people told me that they were like, okay, you got to read John Gwynn. Like, it's totally right up your alley. You're gonna love it. And I haven't read like Malice or anything, but he was like, oh, all the like sequels are all get better and better as it goes. And so I read Shadow of the Gods, and they were like, this is his best like starter yet, and it's just okay for me. I was like kind of bummed out because I was really excited about it.
I still love you, Zach, even though
I just felt like I could have cut 50% of the book.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Changed.
I still love you,
I'll
Zach.
allow
Thank
it.
you, Zach. Thank you, Zach. Thank you. You're not alone.
I actually did a video a while back reacting to 1-star reviews of my 5-star books, and one of the books I looked at was The Shadow of the Gods. There are people who feel the same.
But I hated it because I loved Orca so much.
Yeah.
I wish I could have just like taken out like a good like 30 or 40% of the book, just ripped it out, and then just like devoured the rest of it and just loved it. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Okay, you owe it to yourself to read Hunger of the Gods then, because
But then am I going to set myself up? Am I going to be sad again?
I
think that's my book. That's my book, Hunger of the Gods. I'm scared to read it.
It's funny, like Mihir from Fantasy Book Critic, he always teases me. We teach each other about Malazan, because he's like, Paul, come over to the dark side. Don't like it, come over with me, right? And I'm trying to give it a try, right? And I'm even having people like AP Canavan and that try to explain it to me and help me with it, because it was a book that, as an author, I felt inadequate in not comprehending the plot right away, because it's so like I thought I wrote dense immersive stuff like Reed Erickson, and it's pretty like it's tough, right? But that, and Steve does some great stuff, deep dives into Malazan, and I think you're taking a break right now, Steven.
Yeah, I needed a break.
Yeah.
Needed a breather.
It's really heavy, and Zach, one of the things about your writing that I think has huge appeal is that, and obviously you're a great writer, but the prose, I understand, it's very accessible, right? Like it's stuff that you can, and I think Taylor, you'd enjoy it. That it's very accessible, and I think that's one of the strengths of your book.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fully expecting to love it now. So, and also Maria made a comment that made me think about my book that I'm avoiding, which she said, I feel that way about First Law a little, especially as a character-driven reader. And after I didn't love Hobb, if First Law strikes out, I'll feel like a fraud. And for me, that's actually right on point, because I think I'm subconsciously avoiding Assassin's Quest because I read Assassin's Apprentice and Royal Assassin, and I started a vlog. There's supposed to be like this secret vlog for it, but I've mentioned this before on lives, but I have a really weird experience with Hobb where during the book I don't enjoy myself most of the time. Like, I love the writing, I think it's beautiful and she's great at her craft, but I'm bored for most of the book. But then I finish the book, and afterwards I'm like, wow, I loved that. Like, I find myself giving it a much higher rating if I sit with it. So I want to finish the first trilogy to get to Mad Ships, because I feel like that's more up my alley. But everyone tells me, yeah, it's the slowest of the three. It felt like a slog, and I'm worried. I'm really worried that I'm not gonna like it. But
yeah, I don't think you're, if you're a character-driven reader, you're not a fraud. I think the problem with Hobb is it is kind of like depressing, and Abercrombie's also depressing. So I feel like it's okay to be like, I like character-driven, but man, is this depressing. The only thing I will say about Abercrombie is he's just a lot more humorous than Hobb. So it does feel, even though it's dark, it's lighter in a way that Hobbs isn't, because of that. But, when I started First Law, I actually expected to not like it. I only did it because of pressure. I was like, I'm going to read this and hate this. And now I've read almost every single book he's written. I think I only have the last trilogy left. So it may surprise you. Maria, I think that's who said it, right? Yeah. It may surprise you. It surprised me because I really didn't think I was going to like it.
Steve, what do you think of the first? I know you'd read some Abercrombie. I think you did some videos. I haven't had a chance to watch them. What do you think of First Law?
I enjoyed it. It was my first entry into, well, one of the first entries into, like, I guess, grimdark or dark fantasy, and I enjoyed it. It's a great place to start if you want to dip your toes into the darker fantasy books. But now that I've read other books, First Law isn't as dark as, I wouldn't say it's on the lighter end of grimdark, I would say now. But I kind of think of it as a if Tarantino wrote fantasy, it's what it would be. Is kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, Steve, it's funny you say that because I found after reading Abercrombie, I was like, oh, maybe I like grimdark. And then I tried a couple of the grimdark and I was like, nope, definitely not for me. I like how Abercrombie writes. I like his style, and that's about as dark as I can get. And it's already pretty tough for me. So funny that you say that it's like grim light now, because I think you're right.
Yeah, it's on the lighter end for sure, I would say. It's a great place to dip your toes in, though, if you want to explore the genre.
Definitely
has some of the funniest one-liners I think I've read recently, at least in fantasy fiction. Like, he has some great ones that I quote.
He does a great job. He does a great job subverting expectations too. I mean, things that you would just kind of take for granted in most fantasy, he flips everything on their head. So it's really humorous in that way too.
Totally.
Zach and Hillary, if you want to watch a great video, Steve did a video on what is grimdark. You know, the controversy of, you know, isn't it? You know, what is it? You know, just for all of you, what again? We keep going back to this topic because it's so compelling. Like, you know, what is grimdark? Is it still even a thing? Is it still popular? Now you're seeing perhaps some people are talking about a counter movement to grimdark, in that the cozy fantasy stuff now is really becoming, you know, almost like a backlash against, you know, I've read too much dark, depressing stuff, as Hillary said. Now I need legends and lattes, right? Like, is that like what's going on with grimdark?
Steve, you made a video on it. You take us there. You start us off on this conversation.
I always get in trouble with this one. Some people are really sensitive. I don't know, for some reason, but I kind of see it as, for me, I think it's you know, the darker tones and the I don't say realism, but it's you're not sure what to expect, so you go in with most things that you would expect to happen in normal fantasy doesn't happen in grimdark, or, you know, people die, things that you wouldn't normally expect, and, you know, things like First Law, they subvert expectations that you wouldn't expect in ways too. So that's kind of the way I see it, but everyone sees it. Everyone has a different definition. It's hard to describe it, but I think there is a counter to it now with cozy fantasy. I think people want something lighter, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but I think just with things come in waves and different trends, and I think people are looking for something lighter because of everything else going on in the world, like a pandemic and everything else happening. I think it's comfort for, you know, something like Legends and Lattes is a great comfort. It's an easy read that people are enjoying. So I think it comes and goes in waves.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, Jimmy and I from the Fantasy Network, I don't know if you guys know Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
He's really great. We actually did a live talking about what is grimdark, like what's the definition, because similarly, I just don't really think I think it's difficult to define. I think people could even name something like Sword of Kaigen grimdark in some ways, and other people be like, no, it's way too hopeful at the end. So I agree with you. I don't necessarily think it has a definition other than it's darker in some way, and how you define that is going to be up in the air. And I think all fantasy comes and goes in waves. I think we see a lot of chosen ones, and then we see a lot of what, you know, there's all these. And I think grimdark was a phase that was really brought to light by Game of Thrones. Not that he was the first to do it, but I think the wild success of Game of Thrones and the very darker tone of his fantasy kind of ushered in a new era, popularizing that. Being so heavy. Maybe the ending of Game of Thrones that upset people. Maybe that, I don't know. I think.
Oh no, are they skipping out for you guys as well, or just me? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just confirming. Sometimes my Wi-Fi is faulty. So. Well, I don't want to talk over them if they're still talking, but from from my perspective, I definitely agree with Hillary. You know, I think I mentioned in previous podcasts, but Game of Thrones made fantasy cool. You know, like, oh, I didn't know people could backstab each other and be grimdark. So I think that brought it to a wider audience, for sure.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, we're back.
Sorry about that.
Just refresh.
That's okay.
It's good now.
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah.
And to your point, Bookborn, I think you know, Game of Thrones did introduce it to a whole new audience, and I was part of that audience. I didn't know that there was fantasy that was, you know, I always saw it as Michael R. Fletcher always says, like, you know, dudes with long, glowing hair and chiseled abs, and everything's, you know, they're the chosen one kind of thing. I didn't know that there was fantasy out there like that. So I was one of those people who like, oh, I didn't know that this existed. So here I am.
I think that's the point. Like you need a term to set expectations for people. Mm-hmm. That's really what you just want to make sure that like people going into a book have expectations. And so you create a word like grimdark that like sets a very clear tone just in the word itself of what you're getting yourself into.
I think the funny thing too is that, and we've talked about this on various Patreon podcasts, is that as a writer, the hardest thing is that when you write your book, you have ownership for it, but other people decide what it is and what it isn't. I remember being so offended the first time someone said, "Oh, your book is moral grimdark." I'm like, what are you talking about? My book isn't grimdark. And then, you know, you have to sit back, take a step back and go, well, I can see how someone could have that perspective. Like someone could look at your book, Zach, and go, okay, there's some dark elements in there, but I don't think
chapter, like the darkest chapter in the whole thing. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm out of here. That's horror." I'm like, "That's not horror. Get out of here."
Yeah. But it's just so funny.
I think it's also. Oh,
no, go
sorry,
ahead. No, go ahead.
It depends on where you're coming from, right? So Steve, who came from horror, he's like, Abercrombie, nothing, you know. But if you're coming from, you know, Colleen Hoover or like more, you know, like romance based or wherever you're coming from, and then you jump into Abercrombie, you're going to be like, why am I reading from the perspective of a torturer? This is horrendous, right? So I think it's a really subjective thing, which is why the definition shifts so often. I think what you said, Zach, is something that I'm going to keep in my mind from here on out, is that it describes like a vibe. It doesn't describe something in the book. It describes an expectation you should have going into it. Basically, this is not going to be, it's going to have really dark elements to it. So just get ready for that vibe. I think might be the most universal definition I've heard every time we've had this conversation, because it's so
prepared
subjective.
to cringe. That's what it says.
Yeah. Well, I've also heard people say that it has to include aspects of nihilism, which I don't agree with, but I have heard that as well.
Or they've heard it has to be an anti-hero. I don't think that's true either.
I mean, one book that comes to mind, I don't know if anyone else has read Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Lietzow. No?
We haven't read it yet.
Fantastic book. But if you want to read a book that talks about nihilism and grapples with that, it's not just like the world is nihilistic, deal with it. It actually grapples with it, deals with it, has the reader deal with it with the character. And I mean, it's dark, but I wouldn't necessarily say it has to be grimdark because of that. I don't know. It's a very shifty.
I think the hard part is if anytime a book does something really well, it's going to feel like it can be defined in many different ways, right? I think that's a big part of it, because doing grimdark poorly can look like just trying to stuff as many horrible things into your book without grappling with them or dealing with them. So then when you have a book that deals with the stuff, you know, then it can feel like it applies to a lot of different things than just being this grim thing. Which I've noticed a lot with kind of like the good, at least for me, what makes it good. Yeah.
I had a question for Bookborn. So you've been at this booktube stuff for a bit now, and you know, lots of subscribers, and you know, very popular. Like, and you've also seen some a lot of booktubers rise to prominence, you know, along with you that are, you know, now what we've talked about a lot in the past is that, you know, when I first got into reading and writing, and I didn't look to booktubers to help me with my reading choices. Like that wasn't a thing. But now, like, I spend hours literally watching your stuff, watching Steve Taylor, Daniel Green, AP Canavan, Philip Chase, all, and they really help guide my reading choices. Like, did you envision it would be like this when you guys started? That basically booktubers have become, the de facto authorities in a lot of cases, a lot of segments of the community in terms of like what you read.
So much power. That's what you wanted, and she got it.
That's not what I wanted. My deep dark secret is I actually had never seen a single booktube video when I made my booktube. Because you kind of have the history is like I really wanted to be a book blogger, and I kept putting it off for like 5 years. I just didn't have time, and finally in 2019 I was like, well, either I'm going to do the thing or I'm not. And then I googled it, and it was like blogs are dead, and you have to do a visual medium. So I really never wanted to be on YouTube. I never wanted my face online. Zach's the one who convinced me to be like, you could do it. You could do it.
Bought her a camera.
He bought me
and
a
forced
camera
it upon her
because he knows that if you buy something, I'll get really upset if we don't use something we buy. So he just bought me a camera and was like, no, you have to use it. So, so I treated booktube like blogging, like, because I had never even seen it. Now, once I got into it and got into the community, I've obviously watched a lot of booktube now, but that is my secret. I mean, we just had this conversation yesterday. I don't feel like I'm that big. I don't feel like I'm influencing people. So it's always so funny to me when people feel like I'm influencing people. That feels like a burden. I'm so grateful people think that about me. Yeah, but
we talk about that. We've talked about that multiple times. How no matter how big you get, because you are big, but no matter how big you get, you don't feel that way. We've talked about that with authors as well, imposter syndrome and things like that. So I think all of us can really sympathize with what you just said, because we've all talked about this ourselves. But you're big. So
nice.
don't downplay yourself.
She's like one of those. It's one of those relative things, right? Where she's got 16,000 subscribers, which is a lot of people. But compared to like any other like YouTube niche, like just so small.
Booktube is such a small. And fantasy booktube. Let's even go further down the rabbit hole, like because you got some really big booktubers in like the
and adult fantasy, because you don't really do
fic, and I don't do YA. Lit fic, some pretty big ones in the YA fantasy sphere, but like adult fantasy, there's a ton of us. We're so great, and we're small because like the biggest booktuber in our subgenre is like 450,000. When you think of the total of YouTube, the people with hundreds of millions of subscribers. It's funny. We're just a very small community. And I mean, I think that is a positive in a lot of ways. But let's see, the 2020 crew is pretty great. Like we have Alan and Jimmy. They're all hovering near 10K. Library. Sorry, I should say the full names. Library of Alexandria. Sure, people know who he is. Fantasy Network. Philip Chase.
Finally got
man carrying thing. Although he is more of like a comedy, I would say, in the book sphere, but he was around the same time as me too, and he's really just like exploded. That's been cool to see. I don't know, the community of booktubers are so great. It's been 100% the best thing about being on this, like just chatting with all the other booktubers. They're all just really great. Do you just ever feel that way? Like
we just want friends.
They're just my people. Like that's been the best part.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely agree with that. It's the interactions with people that make it worth it. So I also have like a group of people that I started with. They're not all adult fantasy, so a bunch of different genres, but all of us are still in contact, because when you start at the same time as people, during the pandemic, we all started. So we're like, hey, we're all new here. What's up?
No, did you start in 2020 as well?
This is okay. I should know the year I started. I don't know if it was 2019 or 2020. But the pandemic, I think it was 2020 when I started. Yeah.
There's a lot of us pandemic, which is funny because you gave me my camera in 2019. It just took me like 6 months because I'm a planner. Everything has to be online. But it was funny that I ended up, because everyone's like, I started because of the pandemic. And I was like, well, I've had this idea for like 8 years. But the pandemic gave me some time to pull the trigger. That I do think the pandemic booktubers, they're a fun crew. Like there's a lot of us and we're a fun crew. That's how I feel about it. I think we're a fun crew.
No, I definitely agree. I think it was a catalyst for a lot of us. I'd been a lurker, for a while. And then I was like, all right, I got time. I sat down with my little phone in a corner of my house and said, I don't know how to do this, and just went for it. So I think a lot of people.
Glad that nobody lives in Washington with us. Everyone's East Coast.
Everyone's in Florida. There's like a million people and go have little meetups in Florida. And I'm like, come move out to Seattle.
What about Japan? Move out here.
Yeah, Japan.
Canada,
We were supposed to go to Japan the summer the pandemic hit. So
the number of times I've heard that, I'm so sorry. I know.
I had a Pinterest board with all the cool stuff I wanted to do.
So we'll make it out there. Maybe.
If I'm still here, you got a free tour guide in Fukuoka. I tell everyone that I connect with on BookTube. Once the borders open, free tour guide.
That'd be awesome.
On Kyushu.
PL, I don't even feel like I answered your question. What was the end of the question? I feel like I got really off track to the question you asked me.
No, you didn't.
What was the end?
The end was just, what do you think about, how, the prominence and how now we're, it's guiding our reading taste, right? Watching all these BookTube channels rather than, before it's like, oh.
We're reading very differently than we used to because of you being an author. Zack being an author is really what got us into the indie community. I had read a couple indie books by chance before, luck, but I didn't really understand the difference, to be honest, before I got online. So I think that's been a huge, awesome thing that changed about our reading. And I would have never read Abercrombie, for example. It's made me try things I normally wouldn't have tried. Just getting to meet a lot of different reading. It's been great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think what I love about BookTube is that, as you said, it really feels the right community. And I see more and more collaborations forthcoming with booktubers and authors because, we need each other. It's a very symbiotic relationship, right? And I mean, what I think, somebody said to me the other day, wow, you've partnered with Steve and Taylor to do this author feature thing. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you know what? I think you're going to see more and more and more of that. And you know what? I understand why, because we all bring our unique perspectives and we all love books. That's the common thread. And we're all here to boost each other and support each other. And but specifically writers versus reviewers. And, in some cases, someone like me, I'm both. I think we really understand. We really get this understanding of how each other thinks and how we can best, bring out, a lot of the positive, the strengths of what each of us does in their kind of unique role, right? So I think it's that's phenomenal. And I have a lot of author friends who are they said what you three are doing is it's I was like, I didn't think it was being particularly cutting edge, but that's what people are telling us, that this is something new. And I think you're going to see more and more of this stuff going on. And I've been blessed, to be working with Steve and Taylor. They're phenomenal. So, Brianna, and I think we've all grown because of it. I think we've learned a lot from each other, and so.
I think symbiotic is the best way to put it. We've talked about this previously, but books and also content, online content, is not finite. There's not a finite amount of space for those things, right? So if someone else grows, it's nothing but beneficial, right? If someone, reads Brandon Sanderson and then someone says, hey, Zack's book is just like that, there's no reason for that person not to pick that up. It's only bringing up. There's really no negative to that. So, I think these collaborative things, it's a net positive.
When we get down to it, we're all just pretty big nerds. And that is a common ground. That's usually a pretty positive place for authors.
Let me tell you about my magic system.
Yeah, fantasy, we're all fantasy. It's just a nerdy place in the most positive of ways. And
I had that experience the other day. I was talking to a coworker because I forget how nerdy it is because all of us love it. And then I'm like, so I'm reading this book, and then I was talking about the magic system. She's like, girl, I don't care. Why are you talking about this? I'm like, it's important. You forget how nerdy
also
it
made me
is.
read so much more. I always thought I read a lot, obviously, I liked enough to make it, but I read more. And you do get skewed when you have a bunch of online book friends and you're like, man, I don't read as much as people. And then you go talk to a normal person and you tell them how much you read and they're like, what else do you do with your time? And I was like, oh, I guess that's not normal that we sit and read for that long.
You're like, oh, I only read 6 books this month. You're like, 6?
Yeah.
It's like more than a lot of people have read in the last like 10 years.
Yeah.
Y'all, US, some of you guys reading 300 books a year.
Monsters.
When I read, oh sorry, no, I was gonna say what I really love about BookTube, and I've mentioned this before, is that, and for like Hillary said, like when I first got into reading writing, you know, before I became an indie author, I didn't know about indie books, which is kind of embarrassing now when I think about it, right? So, you know, my reading was, you know, walk into Chapters, Indigo, which is the big bookstore in Canada, and browse the shelves and, you know, pick a book, or some friend recommends a book and I buy it that way. But now, you know, obviously being involved in the community, it's this whole other thing. But what I love about BookTube is that it's really brought that you know, harmonious feeling between indie and traditional publishing. And why? Because on BookTube is very visual. So Bookborn reviews a book, she'll review Brandon Sanderson, and she'll review Sorta Kagan, and they're side by side. And, you know, obviously two very different writers, but, you know, booktubers review their books as being a book for the most part. And, you know, the distinction, I think, is more about whether the book worked for them or not, rather than is this indie or traditionally published. And I think that's really narrowing any perceived gap, any perceived inequities between, you know, quality of writing and quality of product. And, you know, so that's what I really love, that it's really in some ways level the playing field, that people are understanding how good some indie books really are, and the overall quality, you know, that it's really kind of, I think that's a fantastic thing, what, you know, Bookborn and Steve and Taylor are doing in doing that.
That was a weirdly good heart that I just made.
You did. It was a great one. This is a podcast, though, so people won't be able to see it, but we can all confirm
it's on YouTube
it was
also.
Good.
We can confirm it was a great heart. Yeah,
yeah,
Zack,
I agree with you. I think it's nice that... Sorry, Steve.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, at least most of the booktubers I watch don't have the complex about indie fantasy, right? They're not out there perpetuating the stereotype, which has, I think, been really great for the community. That's all.
I was curious with Zach, what was your coworkers' reaction when you published your book? What was that like? Was it, speaking of nerds in this, you know, this world we live in, what was their reaction? Other people in your life?
Ooh, mostly confusion. We were like, wait, you write? And when I tell them, it's like, no, this is like an adult fantasy book, you know, kind of epic fantasy. I don't know if you have read Brandon Sanderson, kind of in that same vein. They're like, you, how, what, when?
That's
why?
The question is when.
When is a good question. Yeah, so I think most of the time, like, people are, you know, they're either just like kind of ambivalent, and they're like, you know, cool, all right, sure, and then they move on, or they're like, you know, oh, this is like really cool, and they like have a lot of questions about, like, you know, how did you go about doing that, because turns out it's a lot of effort, and PL knows. Writing a book and getting, you know, publishing and getting the book out there, like, it's a full-time job if you want it to be. Doesn't pay great either. For the majority. But yeah, most people have been pretty supportive. Like my mom, for example, has she's been in a book club for 20 years, and she got her book club to read my book. Oh, wow. And they're all women over 60
who don't read fantasy. There's
like an 80-year-old woman in that group. And then I drove down and had lunch with them and talked about my book.
And I love that so much.
It's awesome.
I love that so much.
Yeah, we definitely do it for the love, Zach. That's for sure. I mean, you know, it doesn't mean that, and I don't want to give the impression that, I mean, there's the Will Whites of the world, right? You know, self-published author, and there's the E. Rains, and there's a bunch of self-published authors who typically outsell certainly the average traditionally published author. But then, you know, I don't know if that's the exception. All I know is that things are changing drastically, and, you know, Zach's book is extremely popular. You know, I you know, he's too humble to say again, but sells well. We've had people like Ryan.
that make a lot more. There's niches that make a lot more, especially in the indie sphere.
Yes, agreed.
Like the progression fantasy, lit RPG.
Yeah.
If you write a book that's lit RPG or progression fantasy, like you will automatically get hundreds of thousands of page reads on Kindle Unlimited from people. Yeah. And like for reference, I total have like about 700,000 page reads on KU, and people have millions and millions and millions and tens of millions if it's lit RPG or progression fantasy
or romance. I think is another.
Like I have a friend who wrote epic fantasy. He switched to progression fantasy, and he is now full time. He's probably going to make $100,000 this year on his writing, and all because he switched genres. And so it's like part of me is like, oh, I like what I'm writing, but should I try this other thing? But I don't want to.
It's a hobby. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're hobbyists.
Yeah, it's tempting though. Jeff Spate, is Fallon and Bound. Like, it's on my shelf. I haven't got to yet, but I hear great things about it. And again, like it's really starting to pick up steam, right? And again, like stuff that vein is really, like you said, Zach, it's really taking off. So
it's awesome.
It also delves into the gaming community, though, right? So it's kind of dipping its toes into. I don't know why I look like a crab right now, but into different sections.
Well, that's the crazy thing too. Like lit RPG, all they do for marketing, like my friend, even for progression fantasy as well, they don't run ads. They don't do any ads. All they do is post in a couple of Facebook groups. That is all they do, and then they just people read their book. And I'm like, that is so crazy. Like it's so cool, also, but like that's so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry.
We had a couple reactions to the nerd comment that I wanted to put up. Yay, nerds. Wait, we're nerds. You can forget, sometimes.
People do. I've had a few people get angry at my video opening of Hey Nerds, What's Up? Like, I've actually had people legitimately get angry, like, I'm not a nerd. And I'm like, you clicked on a BookTube video. I am so sorry if it's taken you this long in your life to accept that label. It is not an insult. It is a good, happy label.
Badge of honor.
Bo's joking, but I have had people be serious about that, which is funny. I've screenshotted them. Mm-hmm. They're pretty great.
Oh man. Well, let them go on their own self-discovery journey.
Self-discovery. They'll accept it eventually.
Right. Yes. More than double the reading. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Another wonderful channel, Kay's Hidden Shelf. Great channel. Great stuff on Kay's channel. So many.
She gets me so zen when I watch her videos. Her voice is so calming.
Yeah.
Close my eyes and listen.
It's like our friend up here. It's just
exactly.
Then
what did Ryan say your voice was like?
Oh,
velvety and waxy.
Waxy.
No, was it
waxy and velvety, whatever that means.
That's what Ryan Cahill said.
Ryan Cahill has dubbed his voice.
Hello, guy.
Talk about zen.
But not damp.
This is
right?
Not
moist.
Never damp. Never damp. I'll tell you guys after, but we had a live with him that this is referencing, so it's not out of nowhere. But we have a really interesting comment here. Authors seem to be figuring out how to use BookTube like musicians with reaction channels. Which I think is a really interesting comment.
Yeah.
TikTok as well. Book Talk is insane. The views those people get, like.
I haven't got there yet. I can't. Like I feel oversaturated already with social media, and you're trying to. I have a regular job, just like like Zach and what we're saying, and a family and writing, and then things I'm doing, like great stuff like doing podcasts with Stephen Taylor and blogging. Before Go Blog, Steve Taylor and myself were all members of Before Go Blog, and I'm an assistant editor there now, and an SPFEO judge, and like there's only so many hours in a day, right? So
stop it, PL, too much.
Yeah, I've never had TikTok. I do not need another time wasting app on my phone. In fact, I've deleted like pretty much all of the time wasting apps on my phone. I just don't need it. It's too much. But
definitely agree with that. Yeah,
I did walk into our Barnes and Noble, and they did not. This was at the time when I was trying to get Jade Ward. They did not have any Fond du Lis, but they did have Ice Planet Barbarians. So apparently, TikTok is what is influencing our bookstores more than us. So us as booktubers, we've got to work on it. We've got to make them listen to us.
Snappy. You got to be snappy. Snappy content, right?
Listen does.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
more
I
15,
agree
20-minute
with
videos.
Impossible.
I agree with it being too busy for sure to learn. For me personally, to learn a new app because it'll take me a while. I'm also a planner, a perfectionist. I would probably sink a lot of time into learning it. But also, I've talked before about my preference for long form content. So,
I literally say that to him, that exact phrase all the time is what I say to Zach.
Yes.
Whenever he's like,
Yes.
you should do shorts. And I'm like, no, I like long form content.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Taylor.
Like, so, I mean, I can see why it's so influential because it is snappy. And you can get a lot of recommendations in one short clip for short, people don't have to sit down and watch it. But for me personally, I want to see more than here's 15 romance books and then pictures of the book or, showing the cover. I'd like to hear what is unique about that romance. Why should I pick that one up? So for me, if I'm going to be convinced to read a book, BookTube works better than TikTok, personally.
Yeah, I think it's
I
just
feel
very
like
different audiences for sure.
Mm-hmm. I had my dad text me a while ago, like, why don't you make book talks? I'm like, excuse you, why are you pressuring me? He's like, that's where the money is. I'm like, I've invested too much already in BookTube. That's my platform.
Yeah, we do. We have, and I think one of the reasons YouTube as a platform is hard on books as well is we ask so much of our viewers. Like, we ask them to stay as we talk about things, and then it's also books, which require so much more. Like when people say, like, I saw a Reddit thread, and I was like, why have some popular booktubers started reviewing TV too? Like, I hate it, and I'm like, you got to feel sorry for them. Like, I have so much empathy because the problem is. I'm asking someone when they view my Joe Abercrombie trilogy video to read 3 800-page books versus people who make content about films and movies, which is like an 1.5 to 3 hour commitment. There's just so much barrier to a BookTube video, which we're all in it for the love of it, so it doesn't really matter. But it is an interesting thing to think about. Like you said, the TikTok, it's way less of a barrier when you're just talking about something for 15 to 30 seconds, you're not asking as much of your viewer. So I think it is hard. As booktubers, we ask a lot. So I'm very grateful for the people who stick around because we know we're asking you a lot to watch our videos, I think.
What I've seen with especially the booktube community is it's almost like there's these two, and they're not divergent. You see a lot of the really popular booktubers, and they're all about summary of the book and whether they like it or not, and they really they get people behind the book. They champion their certain books, and but largely objective, great content. And you have the more analytical, like in-depth stuff, like the academic stuff, like the APs and the filters, really phenomenal stuff too, right? And I think, and obviously there's room for both, but I've seen now that they're blending and merging. So you'll see the more academic analysis, like that content, and like I said, this whole collaboration thing, and they'll jump on with someone who's more about, hey, I love this book because it was fun, and that's what I think is I think the future is, again, all these collaborations and this merging and blending of content, especially the visual stuff, because I really think it really draws the audience, right? So
this comment made me giggle. I watch TikToks like every other grown up by watching them on Instagram Reel a week later. Absolutely.
I relate so hard to that. The only TikToks I've ever seen are ones that are posted on Instagram by other people.
Yep. And then you see little Mark in the corner. You're like, oh, it's another TikTok.
Yeah, that's what's going on in TikTok.
I'm the cool kid. I do have a TikTok.
You do.
Whoa.
I told you not to download it.
I've only posted like 10 times, and I haven't done it for a while, but I do have one.
But I have never seen you sit on TikTok, though. Do you ever scroll through TikTok? No, you never open it.
Yeah. It's enough of a time suck having it on Instagram. So if I just have that all day, every day, I'm not going to get any videos done. The content will disappear.
Twitter is my kryptonite.
Don't have it.
Yeah, mine too. It's but I don't know. I just find that that's where I feel the most genuine interaction, and just because that's where I kind of started with the whole, in terms of being a writer with social media, that's still kind of ground zero for me. That's where I met, you, Steve, Taylor, everybody. So, like, that's, I don't know. It works for me.
I have heard book Twitter is amazing. I'm anti-Twitter, so I've never had a Twitter. I won't have a Twitter. Zach loves Twitter, so this isn't a family thing, but it is a me thing.
It's true.
Yeah.
Steve, what about your social media? Like, how are you?
I'm down to just using Twitter and Vero. That's all I use. I don't use Instagram. I don't use Facebook. I will not download TikTok. There's a lot of security and privacy concerns there. So I will not touch TikTok. I just don't have the time.
Just the other day.
I'm still going to chip away at you for Discord, Steve. I'm chipping.
I will not go. I will not use Discord either. I will not do that either.
Slippery slope, man.
You say so now. You say so
like
now.
20 million more that you have to join because someone wants to talk to you over here. You got to join this one. Now all of a sudden you have like 20 that you're trying to keep track of, and you're like, I can't keep track of any of them.
Yeah,
Steve, don't get on Discord. It's such a stressful place. I got on it. I barely talk on there. It's too much. I'm so overwhelmed by Discord. Like I literally. Here's the thing. If you want to hear up from me on Discord, people, you have to tag me. I am not going to be on Discord unless my name is mentioned because it's so overwhelming. There's so many. Yeah, anyway. So I feel you, Steve.
It reminds me of like a late 1990s chat room. It's like we're moving backwards in time. I just don't get the appeal. And I don't want 50 notifications on my phone in like 5 minutes. A bunch of conversations I don't care about. It was too much and I can't do it.
I'm with you. It's such a great concept, but I just get overwhelmed. But there's something about the colors, or maybe I need to just like, I just get like it just doesn't mesh with me. It's one of those platforms that and there's so much great stuff going on there. But I have in so many Discords technically, but I don't like bookworms. I don't participate unless someone tags me. Even then, I'm like, yeah.
It just sometimes feels like, wow, if I had time, I'd love to be in on these conversations, but I don't have time right now, so it's almost like a full-time job. It feels like, which would be a fun full-time job. Don't get me wrong, but it's tough.
Lana did mention Facebook. There are a couple of really great fantasy reading Facebook groups. One that I'm in with Lana is Indie Fantasy Addicts. If you're not in that group, highly recommend. It's super fun. They do a summer reading challenge. It's going on right now. Everybody gets in teams for the entire summer. There's people who read, dozens and dozens of books during the summer. There's others like me who read a couple. But it's really fun and lots of interactivity with the authors, indie authors in there as well. So highly recommend Indie Fantasy Addicts.
Check that out.
Yeah. Facebook is an interesting entity for me at this point. I haven't deleted it, but it's become like the place where my family can reach me. So I'm not friends with like my aunts or my cousins and stuff like that on Instagram or, on Twitter. It's a very different sphere for me, but Facebook has become, like my family space. Like if they want to reach out, that's where they can do it kind of thing. I haven't deleted it though.
I haven't deleted Facebook. The only thing I use it for is SPFBO at this point.
It's like, it's groups and then like some
there's like some
big
groups,
life announcements.
I never even go on it for social anymore. There's like no one there. It's just like, there's like community groups that are on Facebook that are useful. Facebook Marketplace. But that's like it. It's like it's like not a social platform for me anymore other than like specific groups. It's funny. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm like, I haven't deleted it, but like I'm not using it either. It's weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a comment here.
I work at Facebook, so awkward.
Yeah. We both
technically
really
I work
use
on
Facebook.
Messenger though, so
yeah,
it's okay.
I use Messenger.
I use that, so there we go. We're safe.
I did not know.
The interesting thing about TikTok is, max video length is 10 minutes. I didn't know that. Learn something every day, which is suitable for many of your book reviews. You can raise the bar. That is.
I would have thought that TikTok max video length was 30 seconds based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like 10 minutes on TikTok, people would not be pleased.
Yeah, I was like, you can. Does it mean it will do well?
Yeah. That's true. That's true. The scrolling is quite fast on that app.
Yeah.
And then we have another Discord comment. Can become overwhelming. Very true. You got to mute channels. You can't be on Discord without muting channels.
But then why be on channels though if you're going to mute them?
Wait, no, channels within channels. Like for example, India Chords. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Those are the words. Channels.
I keep promising to go on Reddit, and I know I should be on there, but another one that I just can't. I haven't. I just,
Don't
I know
do
it's a
it.
big rabbit hole.
Don't go on Reddit. I don't waste time there as much anymore. It's just become a very negative place in general. There's some great there's some good subreddits that aren't, but in general, I would say it's going negative. A less fun place to be than it used to be, in my humble opinion.
I'll take your advice. Okay, because I haven't done it yet. So I'm like,
says,
okay, one more reason not to.
Lana says, I thought it was 3 minutes, so 10 is good to know. Not that I'll ever take advantage of that. Yeah.
Check out Lana and Steven at India Chords. India Chords. Wow. Great stuff. Great stuff that you folks are doing. So.
It's been fantastic this year. Now, this is a question I personally like to ask whenever we host page chewing over on my channel, because I'm obsessed with like origin stories of people's reading life. So I even made a tag a while ago called the personal canon tag, because I just love to hear what people, what got people started. So I always ask this question when someone's over here, but where did your love of stories begin? Because, we've got a booktuber and an author. So clearly both of you guys have been invested in stories for quite some time. And I always like to say as well, I don't mean only books. I mean any kinds of stories. So if video games or comics or, cartoons, like what was your origin story for stories? What got you into it?
You can start.
I read when I was younger, in like elementary school and junior high. I basically did not read at all when I was in high school. And what really like kicked the gear for me was I had a friend in college who really liked this trilogy, and he had a bootleg PDF version of it. And so he was like, dude, you should read this series. I'll just share it with you. It's totally like, it's free because I can just share like the PDF with you. And I was like, I'm in college. Free sounds great. Okay. It is still one of my favorite trilogies of all time, if not my favorite. It was Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson.
And I'd also like to say, since it was bootlegged, we have paid Sanderson back. I don't know if you can see our 2 Sanderson shelves. Like, I think he's going to be okay that we bootlegged it first.
Also, he has said that he is okay with people bootlegging his books because this happens. But anyway, that was kind of what kind of brought me into it like hard. I read that trilogy, and the ending of the 3rd book is just like everything just comes together so perfectly. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And so I started reading a bunch more Sanderson, a bunch of Brian Staveley, Anthony Ryan, Brent Weeks, and it kind of just really like kicked it off again for me. That was probably about 10 years ago. Yeah,
and I feel like maybe being married too, because I was still reading a bunch, so I felt like it also made you feel like to get back into it. I've read, I don't know, forever, and I never stopped reading. That was like in high school and junior high and like I just always read. I come from a family of readers, especially my sister, my older sister. So she was always the book funnel. She would be like, she's 4 years older than me, and she's my only sibling. So growing up, she would just be like funneling me books until it was something I liked. So all sorts of things. She reads really widely. And it's just interesting to me. I always was fantasy. Every time she'd give me a book that wasn't fantasy, I just wasn't into it. Like since the youngest I can remember, to be honest, it was always fantasy, which is something I've tried to look up. Like
nerd.
I really have. I wanted to do a video on this, like look up the psychology of that. No one's done any studies. It's very unfortunate. Someone needs to give me a grant to go study that. Like, I don't know why that has always been for what are Secrets of Droon, Gail Carson Levine. I don't know if anyone, Ella Enchanted, Princess of Barmere, Harry Potter obviously was a huge one. Artemis Fowl. All of those were just like a huge inspiration. Star Wars, that's a film one. I saw Star Wars, I think, when I was 6 or 7. That became a personality trait for a while. I've just always been really invested in the fantastical. And I can't explain where it comes from. It's just kind of always been a part of me, to be honest.
Hearing you mention Artemis Fowl and that kind of age of books just sent me back to the Scholastic book fairs when I was young. Oh my God.
Our son is now in elementary school, and they don't do like the book fairs, but they send home the sheets. And like, we are the worst enablers as parents, because like we're like, so like, we don't like to buy things for kids, like toys, no, like they have to earn money. But when it comes to books, it is like an absolute free for all. Those things come home and we're like, well, what do you want? We're ordered. It's like maybe more fun for us.
Our 7-year-old has like 2 full bookshelves of chapter books.
He counted the other day. He has 423 books, which is so embarrassing, like to put that out live. But like,
that's why we love each other. We're like, you can always spend money on books.
No, I mean, and our son is a voracious reader, which has been really great. I was a little worried. You never know. You don't have all the control over your kids, but he started reading when he was 4 and just loves to read. So that's been a super special thing to share. But yeah, our kids are like, know how to manipulate us. Like they will never ask for anything, but if we're at a bookstore, like we get a book, right? And we're like, sure. Great. We use the library. We go to the library weekly.
Yeah. There's like 40 books from the library constantly.
Did you know? At least our public libraries let you check out 100 books at a time. My kids have tested the limit. So we use the library a lot too. We don't just buy, but anyway, it's great to see him get to start with stories as well. How did we get here? You were talking about
just your origin story.
Scholastic Book Fair. Yeah. Anyway, yes, Scholastic Book Fair. If you guys ever have kids, it's just as fun as an adult to be a part of it. That was my point.
Yeah, and right on topic with that. I love hearing that little like snippet of what you decided to do as parents, because when I was young, they had the same rule. So books, I'll buy them for you. Like there's no limit on the number of books you can get. Other things, absolutely not. Food as well. I always had goldfish as snacks because my mom was like, I'm not buying the fruity, the chemical crap, but a book, absolutely. So, but that is my origin story, and that's why I love books. Yep. Oh, you get, you know what though? Sorry. You get good at trading at lunch. No, I'm just saying you get good at trading at school. You get to finesse it. You're like, look, this is a reason why goldfish are better than fruit snacks, and then you get to trade with people. So.
Yeah, I think it's all based on your family and what your family prioritizes. But because we prioritize books and we obviously see a ton of value in that, it feels so valuable to raise them on stories and in the world of reading. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. So, I mean, you can make comments about other things that are valuable, and there definitely are. But because we obviously value it so highly, it has been a very fun thing to make it a part of our family culture. And it definitely is, for sure. Even with our daughter, she's only 3, so it's, can't read yet, but even she loves the library.
Yeah, I walked into the living room today and she was sitting there on the couch snuggling our 7-year-old, and they were both reading their own books. And I was like, oh, friggin' adorable.
Yeah, she'll read. I mean, she can't read, but she'll sit there and pretend she's reading.
The 3-year-old?
Yeah.
I can't think of a better investment of time or money than it's almost like, people talk about give your children experiences rather than things. And yes, books are things, but they're also an experience. And sitting down reading a story is almost like it's a cheaper way of going away on a vacation, and you can learn things about the world. And that's
there are things that can mold you and stick with you as someone who read my whole life. I remember specific experiences of like going through a really hard time in my life and coming home to books, like, I mean, this is silly now, but going through a breakup in high school and just going to the library and being like, what books are going to get me through this sadness, which is silly. But I remember I just sit in bed and read, and like, they can influence you, or just even now as an adult, I've been a huge Ken Liu, I talk about, yes, fangirl. And, I read his Dandelion Dynasty, and there are some quotes in there that profoundly affected me in a way that made me want to change some of the things I've done. And, books can have a profound impact on who you are. And even though it can be fun to say like, oh, we're nerdy and it's fantasy, not to sell it short, because they can really help you. Books have helped me through a lot,
Well, the wonderful Beth Tabler, who's like our fearless leader for Steve Taylor and I before Go Blog, she's asked in the last few years, she's done a thing about the books that made us, and why certain books, as part of our origin stories, how they influenced us. And I remember writing mine and realizing, wow, like this book really changed my life, as Bookborn said it. And yeah, they can have a profound effect on you. And I think we underestimate how profound an effect that books can have on us throughout our lives. And I think as the authors, I think Zach would agree. One of the biggest compliments you can get is that your book really touched me. It really struck this chord in me that it just resonated with me. Those are the words I think that are gold for authors. Your book resonated with me. Like, that's truly gold. So.
I'm telling you, origin stories. It's so important. We also have a comment here. Glad to know.
Yeah, great guy.
I'm not the only one who got a late start on reading. That's an important point too, because I think, as Zach mentioned, you can come in and out of it. You can start later, but that profound effect doesn't go away. The stories are still able to reach you.
Absolutely. And you'll be surprised, a lot of the fantasy booktubers that I've met didn't start reading until they were adults. Like it does not, because I did start reading young, but it's like, it doesn't matter when you start. It can have an impact on you no matter when. Never too late.
Really, Steve? You started late?
Yeah, I read indie comics for a long time, and then I started a couple of years ago.
That's cool.
Indie comics is reading, so
yeah,
you would do it
it's
for a while.
a little different.
Fair.
And now you're in these dark like tomes that you're reading.
Yeah. Now I'm dark and brooding. Yeah.
I've always said if someone doesn't like reading, it's because they haven't read the right book yet. They haven't been given the right genre. Maybe school scarred them because they were only reading these books that were just not at all for them. It's just all about finding what you love and,
Yeah, I agree. You have a kindred spirit in Lana saying, I had so much fun taking my kids to the book fair. Definitely more than them. I bought a few books for myself too.
Yes, that would be me.
Lana also says, I remember my mom gave me the book Go Ask Alice when I was 13, which is about a girl's diary and drug use. And essentially they mess you up, and that stuck with me. So I was always happy to say no when offered.
Hey, your mom did a good book. Yeah, look at that. It gave you a book. Nailed it.
Profound impact right there.
Yeah, and you don't have to be preachy. Just let the book do the talking.
And similar to Taylor, I like to ask our guests a question every time just to learn about them. But I always like to ask, what was your first job, and what did you learn from that experience? So Zach and Bookborn, if you can share with us.
You want me to go first?
Sure, go for it.
My first job. My first job, I guess. My first real job, because I worked for my parents a lot. Like I had to be the secretary, where you're not the secretary, but your stuff in the mailers or whatever you're doing. But my first job was as a cashier at a grocery store. It was a local grocery store. That job was the worst. What it taught me is that it's just not the cashier's fault ever. I've never been a person who I think is rude. I don't think I'm generally a rude person, but it did make me so much more patient. And to anybody who's working in that sort of retail sort of job, I remember I was going through a grocery line and it was a guy's first day. And if you guys don't know, if you haven't been to a grocery store, you have to memorize product codes. The fruit doesn't always have it on them. And it's this guy's first day and he was looking up everyone. And I could tell people in the line were getting so angry. And so I was just said, oh, I've been there. It's so hard. Take your time. I'm not in a hurry. And I could see the guy relax. And I could see the people behind me be like, okay, fine. And I was like, okay, I can have an impact now. I try to be so patient because guys, it's hard. It's so hard to be a cashier. It does not seem hard, but people are so mean to you and they blame you. And there's all this stuff you have to memorize. And it just made me a lot more sympathetic. And I try to be extremely patient, even when I'm in a hurry, even when people are being frustrating. I try to just not take it out on them because it's just never the person you're seeing's fault. Anyway.
My first official job was I worked at a movie theater when I was 16. And first off, I applied to a theater and I didn't get the job. So I had to apply to a second theater to get the job. I'm still bitter about it. I'm like, who doesn't get hired at a movie theater? But
okay, I don't mean to interrupt, but I had the exact same story. I worked at a movie theater. What company did you end up working for? If you don't mind sharing, when you were 16, do you remember?
I don't know. It was. I remember where it was. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was AMC. I'm not really sure.
AMC. Okay, I was on Regal. So anyway, just curious.
It's the one at the Super Mall.
Cinemark.
Well, it was 20 years ago.
Okay, well, I don't know.
It's fine.
Right by it, and we'll message you, Taylor.
All right, it's important information. I need to know. So,
but I always got stuck tearing tickets, and it was so boring. But one, I didn't have to clean, and so I just like tried to feel grateful about it, and so I ended up like really taking the tickets from people, and like I would just like have conversations with everybody as they walked by and like compliment them on their like nerdy outfits when they were going to see a movie, and I ended up like really liking it. It was fun. And I remember one time there was a guy who came by, and after I tore his ticket, he was like, hey, he pulls out his wallet and he gives me a business card, and he says, hey, I work at a bank. I think you'd make a really great teller. And so he was like, here's my card. You should give me a call. And I was like, whoa. And it's like one of those times where it's like this dumb little thing, but I learned that it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, you can, one, have fun doing it, and two, like, you can be good at anything, whether it's like just dumb taking tickets or, whether it's something bigger, but, put your heart into it and you can enjoy yourself. So.
Yeah. I remember we would all fight over who had to do the cleaning, rock, paper, scissors. Who's got to do the cleaning? Who's got to take the tickets? Because the tickets is the easiest job. So everyone wanted that one.
I don't know how I got it. Yeah.
I was a concession girl. So I hear what Bookborn is saying. I am so sympathetic because I'm sorry, but the popcorn is not done. Like, there's nothing I can do to make the machine,
I need more butter.
The popcorn faster, like you're going to need to wait. The amount of times it's, your fault.
Yes.
Yeah. Hit the nail on the head.
Empathy. We learned empathy.
Yes. That's why I think it's really important for everyone to have what I call the stupid job. I mean, no job is stupid, but to have a hard job that's like unglamorous, to have an unglamorous job, to give you that needed experience, to really have the empathy for people doing the unglamorous jobs, because I think that helps a lot,
Yeah, because it's the unglamorous jobs that keep us going, that that we can't do without, that we take for granted.
Yeah, I didn't like stupid because they're not stupid jobs. They're usually the most important jobs.
Yeah.
But there's jobs that people think that they can just treat you like whatever. And it just profoundly impacted me. Like, okay, just, things can be frustrating without taking it out on people. It has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to take too much of everyone's time. We're coming up at the hour and 45-minute mark. As always, these go so quickly, and so they're so much fun. But before we do our sign-offs, is there anything that you guys would like to mention? Any other questions people had? I'll give a moment for the comments to pop up as well if there's any last-minute questions.
I got my book released next month, so I'm excited about that. August 25th. And I saw a while back, Maria asked, and she said she was going to watch later. So Maria, if you are here, tomorrow or whenever you watch this, I am doing a book signing at Barnes & Noble at South Center in Tukwila.
I saw that too.
So you should come up and come say hi to us. So it's August 27th. That's all.
All right.
I'm not promoting anything, so no, I don't know. Come to the book signing.
Lana just says, I haven't got to my glamorous job yet. So,
Booktube.
Right? That's it.
Booktube's going to be
okay. Got it. Go read it, everyone. Bonds case is so freaking good. Okay.
Bo might finish tonight. Nice.
Well, on that note, maybe we could do our little sign out. So if everyone can say what they've got going on, any promotions you have and where people can find you if they want to, look at your content. So I guess maybe, Zach, you had started by promoting your book signing. So would you like to continue?
Sorry.
Continue? No, not at all. Would you like to just continue the closeout for yourself?
Sure.
Where can they find you?
You can find me anywhere. ZackArgyle.com is my website. I'm on Twitter at SFF author. Don't ask how I got that. It's lucky, I guess. Also on Instagram, Zack Argyle author. I'm in some Discords sometimes when I show up. Yeah, come say hi. I'm friendly, I promise.
You can find me on at Bookborn on YouTube or at bookborn.reviews on Instagram. I don't post actually a ton of reviews to my Bookborn YouTube account. I'm actually not like much of a book reviewer on Booktube. I talk about other things, but if you want to see what like I'm actually currently reading and all of my reviews, I keep them all on Instagram. So that's really the place to go see if you want like specific book reviews. I'm also on Discord. Just at me if you want to talk. I don't know. I'm on like 15 Discords, so just try to guess. A lot of the BookTube
India
Discords.
Chords, we're both in there.
Yeah, and a bunch of the Booktuber ones I float around in. But yeah, come say hi always. I'm really responsive on Instagram and usually in my YouTube comments. So either of those places we can chat.
My lovely co-hosts, if you just go in a circle, maybe do PL and then Steve. I'll find you.
Go ahead, PL.
PL Stewart. You can find my Twitter. That's where I tend to lurk the most. At PL Stewart Writes. I'm the author of the Dry King Saga. 2 books out. Book 3 is coming in 2023 spring. I'm also, again, honored to be the co-host of Page Chewing with the wonderful Steve Top Books and maybe To the Pages. And Before I Go blog, you can find reviews from me on Goodreads. I love to chat about writing, books. My website is www.plstore.com. So, DMs are open, and you have a question or query, you want to talk books, like always excited to do so. Love being part of the writing community.
Yeah, and I guess I'll go. It's my turn. You can find me on pagechewing.com. That's where our forum is. We have blogs and all kinds of calendar events and other things. I can be found on Twitter at Steve Talks Books or on YouTube at Steve Talks Books or on Vero at that one MFer. That's me. So say hello.
All right. And if you're watching this, you probably already know my YouTube channel. But if you are new, I'm Taylor from Made Between the Pages. You can obviously find me here, very responsive to my comments. And for bookish content, Twitter is the other place where you can find me. My reviews are always also on Goodreads and Before We Go blog. So if you'd like to see reviews or any updates on the SFF judging process, that will be over on Before We Go blog as well. So you can find me there. But thank you, everyone, for coming out to join us. This was fantastic. And as Steve always says, everyone in the comments, thank you for coming by as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of Page Chewing. See you all.
Thank you.
Bye.